As more automakers begin to shift towards electric vehicle production, we are starting to see some incredible choice in the plug-in vehicle marketplace. At least we are if you're someone who's able to spend the equivalent of between $30,000 and $80,000 for your next car. But since the majority of electric vehicle owners don't go back to internal combustion engine vehicles after they've got behind the wheel of an EV, traditional wisdom has always followed the notion that when an existing electric car owner buys a new ride, their old vehicle ends up in the used EV marketplace. Experience has taught us that those cars, often off-lease models, have suffered some pretty large amounts of depreciation, with cars made by Tesla being the only true exception to this. And a depreciated car on the used car market is great news for those of us who can't afford a brand new, all the bells and whistles EV. We've done plenty of videos on this channel on buying a used electric car. In fact, most of us on this team have purchased a used plug-in at some point, and so we are real advocates for letting someone else deal with the depreciation and grabbing a great used EV bargain. Granted, there are some EVs that don't fare so well as used cars. The Nissan Leaf and other cars with battery packs that are prone to early, noticeable battery degradation always require a little extra careful examination before you sign on the dotted line, but for the most part, used EVs rock. With new electric car sales at an all-time high, while traditional internal combustion engine models are still struggling to recover from COVID-level dips, it's fair to expect that the number of used EVs hitting the marketplace is also rising. You might also assume that more cars equals more supply, and thus a general downward trend in used EV prices. Historically, that has certainly been true, but in recent months the prices of used electric cars have skyrocketed, with some models going up in value by several $1,000s. What's more, it's becoming harder to find a perfect used EV, with used plug-ins spending about one half of the time in the used car marketplace than they were a year ago. That's according to Recurrent Auto, a website that aims to become the Carfax of electric car sales in North America, utilizing battery health reports from individual cars to give buyers a more accurate valuation of what a particular vehicle should actually be worth. It's been tracking used EV prices and says that the average price of pre-2019 model year electric cars have gone up an average $1,200 just since March, with prices varying widely in different parts of the United States. Today, we're going to look at that data it's provided, examine some of the reasons it cites for a rise in used plug-in prices, and then add some of our own suggestions to the mix as to why it might also be happening. Let's start with the hard figures. First, it reveals that while Teslas represent 16% of the US national used plug-in car inventory, only 7% of those come from Tesla. The majority, 39% of used Teslas, are sold through small dealerships. It tracked 529 dealerships who sold used Teslas, and noted that 37% of used Teslas came from 5 large national retail specialists. Think companies like Carvana. The rest, 24% of used Teslas, came from a total of 32 large regional dealerships, which I'm assuming took Teslas in as part exchanges for other cars. Of course, not represented here are private sales, because Recurrent isn't tracking individual private sales as far as we're aware. It does, however, say that it expects used Teslas to account for between 30 to 40% of all used electric cars in the not-too-distant future, partly because of the sheer number of cars that Tesla has made to this point. How much you pay for your used Tesla, though, will vary dramatically on where you live, and of course, usual things like condition of the car, how much in demand each model is in your region, and what local incentives are like. As a side, I think it's important to note that mileage alone doesn't determine a car's price, and that is especially true for plug-in vehicles. But Recurrent says that the most expensive place to buy a 2019 Tesla Model 3 in the US is the state of Georgia, where the average price of that model year car sits at $46,793. Meanwhile, Ohio is the lowest state for pricing of Tesla Model 3s at $39,002. More importantly, too, the average price increase from March to May for a used Tesla Model 3 is $3,000 or more. That pattern is reproduced with other cars from other companies. If you want a 2017 Chevrolet Bolt EV, you will pay through the nose in state of Washington with a sticker price close to $22,000, even though Chevrolet is currently offering massive discounts on brand new Bolts that bring them pretty close to that price point. Meanwhile, if you want the cheapest Chevy Bolt in the Union, Connecticut is going to be your best bet, with an identical car costing just $16,379. Even with ongoing recalls and battery fire issues casting a shadow on Bolt EVs, massive discounts on brand new models, and the upcoming more affordable 2022 model year car down the road, used Bolts are now an average of $2,700 more expensive than they were just over a month ago. Nissan Leafs are similarly dramatically different in their pricing. Someone in Vermont can nab up a 2018 Leaf for under $16,500, while their friend in Colorado will have to shell out $5,000 more. But perhaps the most noticeable price hike comes from an unexpected angle: the Chevrolet Volt range-extended electric car. It was discontinued in 2019, and while it's not a pure battery electric vehicle, demand for them is still incredibly high. Recurrent says that here in Portland, Oregon, used Volts are snapped up extremely quickly, with used Volt prices continuing to soar. In 1 month alone, used Volt prices have gone up by nearly $4,000, something our very own Erin Carley noticed when she recently purchased her Volt. If you haven't seen her recent video detailing her buying experiences, you can watch it here. If there are new EV choices and more cars coming to market, why are EV prices soaring? At the top of the list, says Recurrent, is the ongoing chip shortage in the electronics and automotive industry. Car companies have started to ramp down their production as they struggle to obtain the necessary computer parts needed to continue with volume production, and that, of course, is throttling available cars for customers to buy. And of course, when a car is in demand and supply is restricted, it means that new cars are going up in price thanks to dealer fees and markups. So many people are just foregoing buying a new car and looking at the used market instead. This problem is also compounded by dealerships. They are now offering really good trade-in values on used EVs to customers who are upgrading to something newer, and thus they are marking up those used EVs on their lots to recoup their trade-in deals. Then there is the recent economic stimulus payments that went to most US households. While for many recipients it provided an essential, much-needed lifeline to help them make rent, pay bills, and survive the economic downturn that was caused by COVID, for others it simply wasn't. Many people used the checks to pay down debt and fund large-ticket items like funding a car. That's pushed demand even higher and, of course, results in overall price hikes. Those are the two main reasons suggested by Recurrent, but I think there are some other things we need to take into consideration as well. For example, while COVID-19 hasn't directly caused people to rethink their driving habits, many people have examined the overall improvement in air quality in the last 12 months and, combined with political changes in the US, decided now was a good time to switch. We should also not discount the increased promotion of electric vehicles by the US government. President Biden has been talking up the need to transition to electric vehicles since his inauguration, and so it's no surprise that the general public are showing more interest into EVs. And more interest means higher demand, which means prices go up. And frankly, when your government is promising to spend billions of dollars on expanding charging infrastructure, the chances are that you will feel more likely to be comfortable making the switch. This is, of course, being mirrored elsewhere in the world as well. We've seen demand for electric cars spike as more and more regions in the world enact policies that proactively reward citizens for making the switch to electric. And while not all places offer incentives for used car purchases, many do. Some are pretty forward-thinking. Here in Oregon, for example, there's a very generous incentive scheme that's income-dependent. If you make more than a certain amount of money every year, you are not eligible. But if you are under that threshold, it doesn't matter if you're buying a brand new or a used plug-in car, you can get some financial help. Oil prices have also played a part. This year, oil has generally trended upwards, with prices hitting $65 per barrel of crude oil. Tie this in with events like the recent blocking of the Suez Canal by a stuck ship, and prices are expected to remain high throughout the rest of the year. With all of that pent-up demand, a reduction in new car availability, and rumours suggesting that Tesla has sold out of its second quarter production run of vehicles already, it is frankly no wonder that electric cars are becoming more and more expensive. So where does this leave you if you're in the market for a new EV? First, do your research. I'd advocate for what Erin did when she was looking at buying her Chevy Volt. Find a local car to test drive, but perhaps one that you're not super bothered about buying, just to make sure that the make and model of vehicle you're looking at is one that you're going to be happy to live with. Seriously, you would be surprised how many people buy cars these days sight unseen. Once you've confirmed you actually like the make and model of the car you're looking at, give yourself a figure that you're happy to buy at, and of course a figure that you will walk at. While the market is most certainly a seller's market right now, it's important to go in with a figure in your mind that you're comfortable with. Start negotiations well below the price you're actually happy to pay, and work up. See if you can get some discounts or concessions. Be willing to point out things that devalue the car, like scuffs or paint chips, and use them to justify your price. And of course, make sure that the price you're suggesting isn't out of the normal price range. There is absolutely no point trying to buy a car that's clearly worth more than you want to pay for it. But if you're within the average price range, you might get lucky, so good luck. And that's it for today. As always, thanks to the folks on my right for being our $15 to $49 a month Patreon supporters. Special thanks to our $50 a month patrons: Anonymous Freak, Regine Fellows, Gordon C., Paul Conway, Laura Sanborn, Anthony Coates, Denny Hyde, Sean Ueda, and Tesla in the Gong. And our deepest gratitude to our $100 a month Patreon supporters: John Lyons, Marcel Ward, Reggie Watts, JP Fagerback, Will Graylin, and Ian. If you would like to join the ranks of wonderful supporters, you'll find links below to Patreon, Bitcoin, and Ko-fi. You can chat with the team and TE fans over at Discord. And if you want to buy some TE swag like this, just head over to our Redbubble store. Thanks for joining me, and as always, keep evolving.